welcome to Express Your Truth Poetry Series Class 10. Today we're going to write a personal narrative poem. Yes, a personal narrative poem is a poem about something that happened to you personally. You're going to take the most vivid, the most visceral, the most interesting parts of the experience, and you're going to boil it down to just those elements to explain that sequence of the story. Now sometimes a story is really important to us and we feel like we want to share it and we don't always understand why, but maybe there's something inside of us that just really wants to express that story, to really convey what we felt during that time. And so those are the kinds of poems that we want to write right now. We're going to be looking at events that happened to us during our lifetime and just taking the meat of it, just taking the most important parts of it and putting those down on paper. So let's go ahead and look at some examples of some really excellent narrative poems. Our first example of a narrative poem is called Alligator Poem. It's by Mary Oliver and it's one of my very favorite narrative poems ever. I knelt down at the edge of the water, and if the white birds standing in the tops of the trees whistled any warning I didn't understand, I drank up to the very moment it came, crashing toward me, its tail flailing like a bundle of swords, slashing the grass, and the inside of its cradle-shaped mouth gaping and rimmed with teeth. And that is how I almost died of foolishness in beautiful Florida. But I didn't. I leapt aside and fell, and it streamed past me, crashing everything in its path as it swept down to the water and threw itself in. And in the end, this isn't a poem about foolishness. It's about how I rose from the ground and saw the world as if for the second time, the way it really is. The water, that circle of shattered glass, healed itself with a slow whisper and lay back, with the backlit light of polished steel. And the birds, in the endless waterfalls of the trees, shook open the snowy pleats of their wings and drifted away, while for a keepsake, and to steady myself, I reached out. I picked the wildflowers from the grass around me, blue stars and blood-red trumpets, and on long green stems. For hours in my trembling hands they glittered like fire. So, there isn't really a strong symbol in this poem. It's talking about an experience that she had, where she was drinking water and this alligator came and almost killed her. And at that moment, she was able to really see how precious and valuable life was. And she was able to look at the flowers and the world around her with different eyes because she knew that she had almost died. And everything became more real to her. Everything became more important and more beautiful because she was breathing air that she may not have if she hadn't survived. So it's a beautiful poem. The second poem we're going to look at today, narrative poem we're going to look at today, is called Reluctance by Robert Frost. Out through the fields and the woods and over the walls I have wended. I have climbed the hills of view and looked at the world and descended. I have come by the highway home, and lo, it is ended. The leaves are all dead on the ground, save those that the oak is keeping, to ravel them one by one, and let them go scraping and creeping out over the crusted snow when others are sleeping. And the dead leaves lie huddled and still, no longer blown hither and thither. The last lone aster is gone, the leaves of the witch hazel wither. The heart is still aching to seek, but the feet question whither. So he wants to go somewhere, but he doesn't know where to go, right? Ah, when, to the heart of a man, was it ever less than a treason to go with the drift of things, to yield with a grace to reason, and bow to accept the end of love or a season? So this reluctance is talking about how you go through your life and you miss opportunities, right? And the leaves dry up and they blow away, and as you get older, you see that a lot of the opportunities that you had that you didn't take advantage of and you missed are gone, right? And so love vanishes, seasons vanish, time vanishes. So this is a narrative poem about the passage of time and about enjoying the moments that you have, because otherwise you end up being reluctant for the things that you missed. next poem is from our friend and poet and mentor Enrique Argeta. He's talking about his life experiences, and so I'd like you to listen to his narrative poem and really soak in his words.
It's a spirit of the rabbit, full of good and bad habits. In this world of madness, the place I inhabit, 3 moons ahead of the pack, you can't catch me. Avoiding the snakes and the tall blades of grass, testing my stamina, moving through the mud. Yo soy como soy, it runs through my blood. Indigenous DNA, it runs through my veins. The son of the sun, it's the rays I embrace. At times so lyrical, at times hypocritical, at times so poetic, at times so pathetic. Choices that I made, at times I regret it. Lessons turned into blessings and I pray I don't forget it. At times I'm full of love, at times I'm full of pain, at times I rise above, at times I'm insane. But fuck it, that's life, another page it turns. To whom it may concern, I'm so far from perfect.
As we can see in all 3 of our examples, there's a nice sense of rhyme scheme, a nice sense of assonance, a nice sense of consonance. The way the words flow together is very beautiful. The words are lyrical. The way the poets have put the words together were crafted in a way that made them powerful, right? You don't have to get into every detail of the experience that you had. You just really want to look at the main message that you're trying to convey. And so you really want to put powerful words in those sentences and in those lines to bring the person into the vision that you want to convey to them. So now it's your turn to write a narrative poem. So I would encourage you to go to the Power Words list that you have compiled. We did this in class 1. If you do not have a list of power words, I want you to really think about a powerful image that happened to you, something in your life that you would like to write about. It might be a good idea to go back and take class 1 so you can put a list of power words together if you haven't got any ideas. I am going to use space heater as my idea for my poem today. So it took me about a half an hour to put this poem together. I might still do some revamping with some of the words in here, but this is what I've got so far. Space heater. It was unseasonably cold that year, and I thought that would be my life forever, huddled next to the electric coils, under a makeshift tent, a thin blanket and as many clothes as I could fit over my head, shivering in a fetal ball, knees to nose, alone, enclosed, unvented, breaking the 3-foot distance regulation in the instruction manual, the one with the angry face flame drawing. But I may have welcomed it, having nothing of particular value anyway. The little unit tried its best, pumping all it had into its meager orange coils, but it was sadly inadequate, and I curled around it to soak in any stray warmth. I could not even imagine my life now, a furnace with an on switch. I haven't used a sweater in months, and I scarcely remember those times I quaked in the night. Again, with my space heater poem, there really isn't a lot of symbolism. It's just sharing an experience that I had when I was freezing to death and all I had was a little space heater and I thought I was going to die. And now I barely even remember it because my life is so much more comfortable, right? So doing an homage to that time in my life when things were much more difficult and recognizing that I have, made some progress. And so that's a good thing to share, right? I want you to really think about some experiences that you've had, positive or negative or happy or sad. Really think about things that are meaningful to you. Canonize them as you think about them and as you put them into print in your 10 minutes of poetry writing this week. Once you get the words down, go ahead and go through those words again and elevate your words, elevate your language. Take some time to really put it together. Get the most powerful words that you can think of and put them down on the page. It'll make your poems really, really meaningful. Yes. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week for class 11.